Just let me know when we're on.
We're on.
We're on now. I wish we were live.
Maybe next time.
Greg, we're here. It's lunchtime Friday in Chicago, Big Ten Media Days. The last couple hours, we got to hear from James Franklin and also Sandy Barber, the AD.
Mm-hmm.
But we actually have been trying to pay close attention to all the other programs as well. But let's start with James Franklin and what you thought of his 15-minute segment here with the media. I think that a lot of people are going to focus on the fact that even though Tommy Stevens is no longer with the program, that doesn't mean, Greg, that there isn't a quarterback competition this August.
Right.
It's just with different people.
Yeah, it's Sean Clifford and Will Levis, and they're not letting it go, even though it seems like Sean Clifford is,
He's got to be the guy.
he got to be the guy, the overwhelming favorite. They're going to go into camp and call it a competition. He said, paraphrasing, that they'll make an announcement about who the starter is when it's clear to everyone who the starter is going to be. Based on what he did with Trace McSorley,
Right.
It'll probably be the week of the opener against Idaho. If not, just, maybe they'll just flip a coin on game day and bring him out that way. I don't know. But, I think everyone's pretty much on the same page with it being Sean Clifford. And then, he sounded like at Lift for Life, a guy that was, he sounded like the man. And it didn't sound like there was any reservation about having that kind of tone, that kind of leadership. So I think Penn State fans are going to like him, Bob.
Yeah, and even though Penn State has the luxury of having 2 home games early to start the season where they could play both of them if they wanted to, James Franklin to me has always been a guy, when you name your starter, let's get him some experience.
Yeah.
I mean, even if they're going to win those games handily, I think say it's Sean Clifford, he's going to play 3 quarters, don't you think?
Yeah. Oh, I think he's gonna. I don't think there'll be any. I'd be surprised if if it's a blowout, perhaps they might go to Will Levis at some point. But I think you have to if he's your guy, you have to be your guy, and I don't think you go into the season, half-hearted about who that is and play him in any kind of way that would indicate that a competition is still ongoing, unless camp turns into something we don't expect it to.
So James was asked about why the Big Ten champ has been not part of the national playoff for the last 3 years. And that includes Penn State in 2016. They win the Big Ten title, and the committee goes with Ohio State, who Penn State beat as an at-large, and they got crushed by Clemson. So somebody asked him the question about why the Big Ten has not been in it, and he said, very direct. But he also then went into a pretty nice little, a lengthy answer. And parsing through his comments, it seems to me that maybe he's not a fan of the 9-game Big Ten schedule instead of 8. That leaves one less non-conference game, maybe against a weaker team to pad the wins. He also, I don't know, Greg, he talked about the Big Ten East and the Big Ten West, and I kind of thought he was maybe thinking about realignment. I don't know what you thought about that. Do you think he's happy with the way the Big Ten's set up?
Yeah, I think the problem at this point is that you have no consistency in the Power 5 in terms of the number of conference games played. Sandy Barber just spoke in this very room about 25 minutes ago on Friday, and more or less said that you're never going to get all Power 5 schools or all Power 5 conferences to do the same thing. The Big Ten's not going to tell the SEC what to do. The SEC's not going to tell the Pac-12 what to do. So, I think the Big Ten might have itself to blame for this. They wanted the 9th game. They can use whatever reasoning they want, but let's call it what it was, another piece of inventory for the Big Ten network to sell. And, that's great and well, and it's making them, untold millions and billions of dollars, but it's at the expense of playing crossover games against teams that can beat you, as Ohio State found out, as opposed to maybe some walkover, out of conference opponent. So I think that, James probably was getting at realignment a little bit. It's hard to see that happening anytime soon.
2 more things to get to. I'm going to just ask you, if you had to describe Michigan coach Jim Harbaugh's appearance Friday morning at the Big Ten Media Days, and he'll talk a little bit later, but his initial appearance and his Q&A, how, in a couple of words, what would you say about what he did for 15 minutes here? I kind of loved it. But
it was enjoyable. It was unique for sure. He doesn't really hold back. He doesn't really, if he doesn't want to answer your question, he's not going to. If he wants to answer it the way he wants to answer it, he will. He gave a long speech about Josh Gaddis, and it turned into a lengthy answer about his young coaches and how they kind of intertwine with his young players. So, it was an interesting 15 minutes from Harbaugh, who never disappoints at these events.
Well, I kind of found it interesting that he said that he was a fan of Josh Gaddis dating back to his time at Western Michigan. The problem was that Jim Harbaugh was at the Niners,
Right.
or some other program. He wasn't at Michigan when Gaddis was at Western Michigan. That was interesting. And Teddy Greenstein of the Chicago Tribune asked Jim if he wanted to maybe, if there was any context to his comments about Urban Meyer being a controversial figure everywhere he goes, and if there's anything he'd like to clarify. And what did Jim Harbaugh say?
He said no. He said, I think you all know and have reported on what I was talking about. So,
any other things strike you from
I wanted
Thursday
to
or
get
Friday?
your thoughts on James Franklin's response to a question about the great to elite speech following the Ohio State game.
Yeah, so he first of all, I'm not quite sure that they're great yet. I mean, it's a very gray area. They have won a Big Ten title. They have won 31 games in the last 3 years, but when you're coming off a 9-4 year, and when you haven't beaten Michigan State the last 2 years, and you haven't beaten Ohio State, and you lose to Kentucky in the bowl game, I just don't know if that qualifies as great. But anyway, he said after the Ohio State loss last fall, when they lost by 1 point, that they're great and they're going to get to elite no matter what it takes, and he could be a pain in the butt to do it. And then a guy from the Ohio State beat, Bill Rabinowitz, followed up with that and said, can you kind of talk about where you are? And he said it was been a little bit misinterpreted. But I mean, clearly, I think the context, Greg, is, has Penn State narrowed the gap on Ohio State, everything included, whether it's facilities, whether it's recruiting? And I'm not sure that they have. You can say that they have on the scoreboard, but to play 3 games and actually they've outscored Ohio State the last year, but 3 years by 1 point. But they had to win one of those games, and I think it's showing up in recruiting. I think it's showing up everywhere else. I just think that they've narrowed the gap since maybe the start of the 2016 season. But are they close enough to Ohio State where you're going to see some change on the recruiting front, and when you don't get Julian Fleming and you get some decommitments, I just don't know. I don't think they close the gap until they beat them again.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much, you hit the nail right on the head. You can obviously recruit well. They have, maybe not as well as Ohio State, but they've clearly increased the talent on their roster. I don't think there's any argument to be made there, but you have to win those games. You can't be up in the fourth quarter. Well, there we go. We're back.
That thorn in your side was almost interrupted the video. I won't mention any names.
We're back. Thanks, Dave. So, but to finish up that thought, I think that basically you have to. You're right. You have to beat them on the field. You have to be in a position where you can say, this is what we did. And because if you beat them, you're probably going to be in the Big Ten East conversation to either go to the Big Ten title game, maybe.
I would hope so,
playoff. Right. So you do that, you're able to show it to kids, and then that obviously would change everything about the way they recruit and move forward. So, yeah, it's all about doing it on the field at this point.
All right, we've talked at length about James Franklin and Jim Harbaugh, and there's still more to get to, but we wanted to at least check in with you guys, let you know that we're still alive and well out in Chicago with the Big Ten Media Days kind of in the home stretch. We'll hear a little bit more from Penn State and the players, but I just wanted the fan base to know that, Greg, you have survived two or three nights in Chicago. I'm not sure about Saturday and Sunday, but we're just going to take it one hour at a time.